This is the KA2284 Audio Level Indicator Module DIY soldering kit. It's another soldering kit that I recently purchased from AliExpress. And when I did so, it had a nominal price of just 88 pence. However, as I purchased this kit with another, I managed to get a discount. So, including all discounts, shipping and taxes, this kit cost me a little over 55 pence. At that price, I really couldn't refuse. So let's take a look inside and see what you get. Okay, just a few components in this kit, and here we have the main PCB. It's a very tiny little PCB, and it's a really attractive blue colour. All the component symbols there seem to be reasonably well marked, and so that should make it fairly easy for us to install the components on the board. To install in the board, we have a couple of resistors, a couple of electrolytic capacitors, some wires with associated connectors and connection blocks, 5 green LEDs, a red LED, a 10K rotary potentiometer or variable resistor, and this really interesting little IC. So hopefully this is coming across on the camera. This is the KA2284 as indicated on the package. However, I thought this chip was kind of interesting as it only has pins on one side. So rather than a classic DIP package or dual inline package, here we have a SIP package, a single inline package, where all of the legs are inline on one side. As we saw, the kit does come with some instructions, however, as usual, they are in Chinese. Importantly, it tells us that this kit runs from 3.5 to 12 volts. And we do have a schematic diagram on the other side of the paper. As usual, I'm going to start with the lowest height components, and in this case, that is the resistors. So let's turn on the soldering iron and get started. So this is our first resistor. It's brown, black, black, black with a brown tolerance band. So that's 1, 0, 0 with 0 additional zeros, and that brown tolerance band for a nominal 1%. Our second resistor here is a brown, black, black, red with a brown tolerance band, and that gives us 1, 0, 0 with 2 additional zeros for 10,000 ohms or 10k ohms. And that brown tolerance band for a nominal 1%. If we have one, we can check the value of our resistors with a multimeter. And in this case, let's start with the 10k. So we need to set the meter range to something that is higher than 10k. And the lowest range that's higher than 10k is the 20k range here. And we can take our resistor and place it across the probes. And here we're getting 9.89, which is close enough to 10k for this circuit. We can also go ahead and check our 100 ohm resistor, and I can place that across the probes. And as you can see, we're getting 0.09. We can improve the accuracy of this reading by adjusting the meter to a more accurate range. And in this case, the 200 ohm range will be suitable. Again, placing the resistor across the probes, here we're now seeing we're getting 89.8, which explains our 0.09 reading earlier, but again, close enough to 100 ohms for our circuit. Our 2 resistors go on the board as so. The 100 ohm goes just here, and the 10k in this spot just here. Let's do our LEDs next. Now our LEDs are marked D1 to D5 and then red, which is very handy because it tells us this last LED here is the red LED. Now LEDs do require a particular orientation in the board. So here I have the red one, and as you might be able to see, one of the legs is longer and one of the legs is shorter. And on the shorter side, there is also a slight flattening on the case of the LED, although I find that quite hard to see and often quite hard to feel. But you might be able to catch it in the light if you're looking closely at your own LED. Now, the way I like to test which way round these go in the board is to use a CR2032 coin cell battery. And if you look carefully, there is a plus sign on one side of the battery, and on the other side, there's no printing. So we can put this between the legs here. And as you can see, in this orientation, the LED does not illuminate. But if I flip it over, the LED does illuminate. And that's because the longer lead is the positive lead. Now, that's pretty standard on LEDs, but it's always nice to be able to check. If we look on the PCB here, we can see that slight flattened side associated with the negative side of the board. And we have a small plus sign associated with the positive side of the LED as well. And so that means our longer leg needs to go in the plus side and the shorter leg in the negative side. Now, as you can see here, this LED is very crooked, and I'm still going to go ahead and solder one of the legs, and then we'll straighten that up. Okay, usually I like to try and get the LED in a little bit straighter before I start this, but in this case, I'm doing it intentionally so I can show you how to straighten that up. All I'm going to do is put some gentle pressure on the LED with my finger, very gentle, we're not trying to force it flat right now. Then we're going to reheat the joint just here, and that will allow us to push the LED into place. And then we simply hold the LED firm until the solder has solidified. And there you go, we now have a nice flat LED on the board. At this point, I can solder the other leg and snip off those legs. Now all I need to do is install the other 5 LEDs. Okay, it turns out we only have 4 green LEDs. We actually have a spare LED in this particular kit. Next up, I'm going to do the electrolytic capacitors. And there should be 2 of those. There should be one that's 2.2 microfarad, as we can see on the board here, and one that's 10 microfarad. Capacitors are marked on the can here with the value, and so hopefully we can make out that this one is 10 microfarad. It has a voltage rating of 25 volts, but that's actually not important in this application. We can also see we have a negative symbol just here, and that's associated with the shorter leg. So this is the same kind of orientation that we just experienced with the LEDs. And here we have a 2.2 microfarad capacitor, and this one has a 50 volt rating, and again a marking for the negative side, which is associated with the shorter leg. So as you can see, these capacitors are very similar sizes, and usually I would say that the large capacitor is often the larger capacitance value. But as you can see in this instance, the 2.2 microfarad is actually very slightly larger than the 10 microfarad, and that's partly an artifact of the voltage rating. So it always pays to check by looking at the markings on the capacitor very closely to make sure you're getting them the right way round. As I mentioned, our 2.2 goes here, and if we look on the can again, we see the negative symbol along with the shorter lead, and that goes to the shaded area on the capacitor outline. So the longer leg goes here, and the shorter leg in the shaded area. And of course, the same for our 10 microfarad, just here. This goes in like so, longer lead on the empty side, and shorter lead on the shaded side. Okay, next I think I'm going to install the IC in the center here, and that's just because it's kind of in the way otherwise. Usually I'd install the IC absolutely last, unless there's good reason, like in this case where it needs to go in the center. Now, if you look on the IC package, you'll see that one corner here is slightly chamfered off, so this side here, and that indicates our pin 1 marking, and of course the text is in the regular orientation as well, but this chamfering here indicates that this end is pin 1. And if we look on the board, we can see that one pin is marked with a little square around it. That is our pin 1 on the left-hand side here. So let's carefully insert the IC. And I'm going to hold it in place with a little bit of blue tack just while I solder it in. Okay, next up I'm going to do a rotary potentiometer or variable resistor, and that goes just here. It'll only fit in one way round, so just pop it in as it fits. Okay, so that's installed. You might have noticed that I did a little bit of extra solder on these pins, and that's because this is going to be under rotational stress, and we don't want that to pop out. That needs to be mechanically quite strong as well. Last but not least, we need to solder in the sockets here. And so we have 2 sockets, and they are identical. So we just pop one on each side just here. Okay, there we go. So that's all of our soldering completed. Next, we're going to need some power and an audio signal. So let me set up a power supply and an audio device, and we can test this little device out. So here's my adjustable power supply that we'll be using. And if we just double check those instructions, this should be running at 3.5 to 12 volts. So let's try it around 5, which is a good base level. That will do nicely. We need to install one of the wires here. We can see on the board the top pin is positive and the bottom pin is negative, and fortunately that aligns nicely with our wire colours here, red for positive and black for negative. Okay, so far no magic smoke, but the device also isn't doing anything, and that's because we're going to need some audio. And to get audio into the device, I have chopped a auxiliary cable or a 3.5mm audio cable in half here, and just split off the end so I can tin the ends here. And I'm going to tack this just to this wire here. And on this particular pinout, I've gone ahead and checked, and the ground just here, or the sleeve, is the white wire, and the tip here is the red wire. That gives us the second audio channel. Just here is the green wire, but we're only going to need 2 on this. We're going to need the ground and an audio signal. So I am going to take that from the tip here. Okay, so I've just tacked this temporarily. If you was going to make a permanent connection, obviously you'd want to do this nice and safely with some sleeving over this, but this is just for my testing here. And what I'm going to do is pop this in the board, and then we can try powering up again. And as usual, I'm going to use my old phone here with a headphone jack output. And here we can see I have everyone's favorite test clip. So let's pop it on and see if we can get something to come out of the audio signal. And as I plugged it in there, we got a little bit of lighting up on those LEDs, but let's try just a little bit of playback. And there we go. We're getting a definite beat along. We're getting a nice full range on that meter there. Let's turn the audio down a bit. And there you go, we can see reaction depending on the level of the audio. Now, we can turn the audio all the way up here, and instead of turning it down on the phone, we can of course adjust this variable resistor. And that's turning it up. And this is turning it down. So now we're going to get a bit more range here by adjusting this. Okay, well, this has been a really fun little kit to assemble, and it works pretty well, in my opinion. For just 88 pence, it would have been phenomenal value, but at less than 56p, I am blown away by what you're getting here. It was also quite a lot of fun to install this single inline package. I very rarely have the opportunity to use those, but as you can see, no problem. Probably easier to install than the normal dual inline package, and no socket used in this instance. So it looks like the audio track is finished, but if you're looking for a fun little soldering kit to assemble with at least some practical application, I think this kit is really great value. But for now, that's all I've got time to show you. So I hope you found this video interesting, and I hope to speak to you again soon in the next one.